everybody. Welcome to the Armchair Crew Chief. This is Jordan here. We are here going to recap the end of the NASCAR 2022 season. First and foremost, we want to send our thoughts and prayers out to the Joe Gibbs Racing Team and Joe Gibbs, his family, Ty Gibbs, for the passing of Coy Gibbs Saturday night. Kind of an unfortunate thing that happened there. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started on what happened. So we had all three major series running this weekend. First and foremost, we started off with the Truck Series. It ended up being a pretty good race. I watched the recap because, unfortunately, NASCAR, Fox, whoever had the idea, started the race at 10 o'clock Eastern, so it did not end till midnight. So I wasn't going to stay up to watch that. Overall, it looked like there was a lot of fighting back and forth. The championship 4 guys were sitting up there. It looked like it ended up being, towards the end, Zane Smith versus Ben Rhodes. Excuse me. Majeski just kind of I don't know what he was doing. He ended up just wrecking out towards the end. I think he was overdriving the car, and it didn't work out for him, unfortunately. But this thing came down to the wire. Ben Rhodes was in second, running with Zane Smith, and then you had, man, it was a good race just by watching the replays. Man, Zane Smith came out to win his first Camping World Championship. So congratulations to him. Going forward, we'll see what happens next race. As we were talking about, DGR is going to be Tricon Garage and running the Toyota brand next year. And then you have Kyle Busch Motorsports came out and said that they're going to be running Chevrolet. People asked a lot of questions on why Kyle Busch just wouldn't close his shop up, but he didn't want to do that to the few employees that he had there. So, kudos to him for that. Moving on to Xfinity on Saturday. Man, that was a good race too. It showed a lot of battle between most of the big guys up there that were running the championship for. Ultimately, Ty Gibbs did come out on top, which, based on the earlier news we were just speaking out, was a bittersweet. He got to celebrate with his father, but then the unfortunate thing happened where his father did pass away that night after the championship. So it was highest highs to the lowest lows. I'm not a big fan of Ty Gibbs, but you can't wish anything like that on somebody. And, prayers go out to him and his family because that's just a shame. So that race ended up being pretty good. I thought Gragson was going to have it and handle it well, but he had some issues on pit road, and that just came back to bite him in the butt. I think that's what ended up causing his final demise because he was sitting there hunting down Ty Gibbs towards the end of the race. And maybe if he had 20 more laps, he would have been there. But overall, between Allgaier, between Ty Gibbs and Gragson, every restart they had, they were going at it and fighting, and it was a respectful race. It showed some good racing, and I've said it all season so far that Xfinity was the better racing. I still stand by that. Yeah, Gibbs got out to a huge lead, 2-second lead or so, and that happened with Allgaier. Not so much 2 seconds, but they would end up getting chased down, and it wasn't because of a caution they'd get chased down. They would use their stuff up, and they'd come up and match them and run with them. and then it got interesting and it got real good. So uh, I think Xfinity has a lot to offer going forward. We're going to have a lot of changing drivers. Uh, kind of stinks for Gragson not to win championship because he's going to be with Petty GMS next year. So it's rather unfortunate for that. So that race did ended up ending Saturday, and it was a really good race. Saturday was just a sports person's dream, if you ask me, between all the good college football that you had, the Game 6 of the World Series, and then you had this championship race. So if you were bored on Saturday, they even had the MLS Cup, which I'm not a soccer person, and that was very interesting. If you were bored and you were a sports person, that's all on you. There's nothing with that except for there was plenty of stuff to watch. So finally, we come to the Cup race, where I mean, just watching the racing and the recaps, I wasn't able to watch the race. Uh, it had a lot of same as everything else. Seems like everybody's strung up. There wasn't a lot of real racing going on. I mean, you had some guys battling for position here and there, and then you had one or two guys that could work their way up through the field. Other than that, I mean, it's been the same song and dance with the Cup cars, where if you can't get clean air, you're almost dead in the water. Um, with that being said, Chastain ran a very strong race. So did Christopher Bell. They both ran. They qualified pretty poorly, and then they came out and handled it well. They both secured top tens. Chase Elliott came out, and unfortunately he had a wreck, so that he finished towards the back of the pack, which is rather unfortunate. So if you're doing the math there, your winner was Joey Logano. He started on the pole, and he finished first. Ryan Blaney came in second, and Ross came in third. Ross was one of the big movers. Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, and Christopher Bell out of the top 10 that actually moved into the top 10, who started in the 20s and the 17th was Christopher Bell. But stage breaks went to the top two drivers, and it seemed just by watching some of the recaps that that's all that really could happen. I mean, this racing, in my opinion, you're seeing some fighting, especially on restarts, but something needs to happen. Something needs to change, I think, in these cars. Bring back more of a competitive spirit. They were talking about this car is going to need to make it more technical for things to happen. But I don't see that. I still see the big guys up there running and racing. Yeah, we had different winners, and that's kind of cool. But I want to see more side-by-side racing throughout the whole. I don't want to see somebody get up to a lead and sit there and run away with it all the time. So it's really, really, really sketchy. I think. I mean, we already know the safety aspect of everything. NASCAR's got a lot of work to do on these cars. I know they've been working on them already with the rear clip, trying to make it easier. Um, we'll just see what happens there. I think they need to go back and work on downforce and handling and see if they can get something where these cars can pass freer. Maybe go. You don't even have to look back at the past car, but even go to the other ones. The car tomorrow, that thing looked ugly, but at least it raced and you could race with it. These guys, I don't know. It's I hope for the best that this can just improve going forward. Now that we have a year worth of data from, you know, a full field of racing and 26 races that we can come back with something. Uh, it the cars sound awesome. I remember watching them at a couple races that I went to. They sound great. I like the way they sound now. They look pretty slick when you see them in person. Just the racing is iffy. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if the Chastain Hamlin conflict can keep going. Uh, we'll see what happens there. We do have some big news coming up, and we'll see. We'll get to that here shortly. Um, yeah, so we end up the race with our three champions, um, Ty Gibbs, Joey Logano, and then you also had um, one of the Smiths there, um, Zane Smith, finishing as well. To both that rounds out your three champions for 2022. Um, we got a lot of changes going on next year, a lot of drivers swapping around. Hopefully, Bubba goes back to the 23. That way, Reddick can get to the 45. Because who knows? Everybody knows we don't really need that confusion again. Please don't, NASCAR. Um, I'd like to see maybe the Camping World race start at a more reasonable time for the East Coast. I mean, you're in Phoenix, and Phoenix is a 2-hour time shift, so that thing started at 8 o'clock uh, local time. So anyway, other than that, the big things I could take away from it is this car does run for the Cup Series. They have a lot of work to do on it. It's very rigid, and I don't think people were expecting hits to be this violent. So we'll go from there and see what happens. And hopefully you can only go up from here. We have enough data that they should be able to make the changes. Whether they make it or not, who knows? Some off-season changes I would like to see that haven't been announced. I'd like to see the crew chief for the 19 car change. I don't think that's a good fit. Chalk it up to inexperience. I don't know, but that would be a nice change. It'll be interesting to see what happens. So the big news that came out is Jimmy Johnson, 7-time, is coming back to the sport. It'll be interesting to see what he does. He's actually becoming a partial owner in Petty GMS. He will be running a few races, including the Daytona 500 for Petty GMS and select races going forward. So it'll be interesting to see if he has any expertise that he can bring into that historic ownership. Just between him and Richard Petty, you have 14 championships. My goodness. So it'll be interesting to see if he can bring something in there to help Eric Jones be stronger. It'll be interesting to see what Spire can do with Corey LaJoie. I think Corey's a really good driver. He just needs to get some equipment under his belt, and he can run with the rest of the guys. I mean, he proved it as it was. I think it was Talladega, a few other races last year and the beginning of this year. So there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of guys like Martin Truex, Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick won, though. A lot of these guys that didn't win, to see what happens next year where they're not changing teams. So you have those changes. And then you have the changes like Kyle Busch moving over to RCR, Tyler Reddick moving to 2311, AJ Allmendinger coming up full-time now, Graxon coming up full-time now, Ty Dillon moving over to Spire. So there's a lot of changes to see what happens going forward with some of these guys. See if Jimmy Johnson gets his 48 number back. I don't know. He kind of hinted that Rick said he wanted to give it to him, but who knows? So yeah, that's that's pretty much the wrap up on the season. We're going to take the off season a little bit slower. We'll take some notes and do some less frequent podcasts until we get closer to that clash out in February. Uh, but our upcoming dates, we do have the Chili Bowl, which I will mention just because you have a lot of guys that come from Cup Series that will run in it. And it's probably the next big race coming up is the Chili Bowl. Then after that, on the 5th of February, you have the Clash, and then 16th you have the Duels, and then the 19th is we're back starting the season up at the Daytona 500. So we'll see if Joey Logano can repeat next year, if he can become a 3-time champion. We'll see. We'll see if maybe Ryan Blaney can get that elusive, heck, let's even go championship 4 with Blaney and see what can happen there. I'd like to see him run, see if these cars can get fixed and we can actually run them and they're not dangerous to get hit. One of the other big things that popped up, I didn't even mention it, was Keselowski's cars, the 6th car, actually caught fire. So that's another, I think, 3rd car that's caught fire this year. You had Harvick's catch fire. You had, I believe it was Buescher's car catch fire. That was at Indianapolis. So there's a lot of work to be done by NASCAR, and hopefully they're not just going to sleep on this and just, wait till the last minute and pull out cliff notes and try to fix something. So we should see if there's going to be some tests going on towards the end of the off season, up in January-ish, and we'll go from there. So I'd like to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and a Merry Christmas. And I will be posting a little bit more infrequent until we get back up. Might bring up some of the other sports that are coming up, as it looks like we are now down to hockey, football, and basketball. So sports is kind of slowly winding down to being winter sports now. Thank you guys for listening. Please like, comment, and rate us. And can't wait to speak to you guys again on the next episode. Have a good one.